Hello everyone. Um, I'm back with another video. Um, as of you know recent current events, the discovery of the 215 bodies of Aboriginal children who were put into residential schools. Children as young as 3. The remains being found in BC at one of Canada's largest ever residential schools. I think the mass students they had at one time was almost 500 at once, and to find 215 bodies, it's pretty much half of the fucking students, if you want to call it that. um, you know and it sickens me, it disturbs me, it makes me upset. I'm not shocked that they found remains on a residential school site. I know they had published that they had found maybe 50 bodies. So for that community themselves to go out of their way and find the radar or the money for the radar and come up with it to search that residential school land, and to find these 215 bodies, it just makes the mind wonder, how many more others are there? And all these schools all across Canada and North America, whatever you want to call it, um, you know they're all going to get searched. And I feel this 215 is just the scrape of the iceberg, the little tip of the iceberg, because from the stories I've been told from residential school survivors that I've met throughout my life, aunts, uncles, older cousins, stories from my great-grandparents that my parents have told me, and just personal experience and stories that my parents have told me. My mother as well as my father were put into residential schools, day school. My mother, she was living on the East Coast here in New Brunswick. She's Maliseet. My father, he's a Fontaine. He's from Winnipeg. We're a Ojibwe there. I'm here, I guess. I'm a Ojibwe everywhere. But, growing up, the older I get, the more stories my dad was more open to share with me and my brothers. The more things he would share, the experiences, the horrific, situations they've been put in, the trauma from it, the generational, trauma that stemmed from it, that trickles down through each and every generation. Me personally, I guess, since being a child of 2 residential school survivors, I can see now certain things throughout my life growing up that start to make sense. Things that I would always question my parents why they were doing it, why they were acting certain types of way. It's because I didn't understand at the time. And as I got older, like I said, my dad shared stories, my mother shared stories. I've gotten to read, certain documents from courts from people who have fought the government for restitution, I think that's the word. And I'm losing my train of thought, but I had a whole page of what I was gonna say, but I'm not like that. I'm going off by heart because I like to talk. So anyway, first off, today every community, everyone across Canada, North America, whatever, lowered their flags to half-mast. And the color orange, the whole Every Child Matters movement, that's a big thing right now, obviously. And it's a lot, and I hope through this video people can show compassion, empathy, sympathy to this whole situation. I just hope that people think before they speak and think before they act on any kind of, because this whole situation, it's going to stir up a lot of emotions. It's going to stir up a lot of conflict. It's going to stir up a lot of animosity. But at the same time, everyone needs to remember this is about the children that were murdered at this school. You know, whoever thought of, I saw this on Facebook just minutes ago, but like, did your school have a graveyard? Like, no, it's sickening. And, you know, just the respects today, Woodstock First Nation, I saw firsthand, you know, a few community members rounded up and got the 215 shoes, and we had a nice big circle. We had a big circle with like the adults on the outside and the children sitting in the middle, and one of the local elders sung a eagle song. It's about the eagle circling around, protecting and watching our children. And as a, you know, I don't have kids. I would love to have a child someday, maybe adoption, whatever. But at the time, at the moment, I don't. But, you know, regardless of your, you know, any First Nation community you see, go to, visit, hear of, we value and cherish our children as well as our elders and women. We put them on the highest pedestal because they are, you know, children are innocent. They're very moldable at that age, and I guess that's why, you know, this shit even started, because, you know, to wipe out the Indian, you know, start at young age. And sadly, those young ages, you know, the bodies as young as 3 being found, it's time to lift that stone and, you know, discuss what's underneath it, because it's not very pretty. And I know it's very hard for a lot of people to relive, and it's a lot for a lot of people to, I don't want to say own up to, but remember a very dark and crucial time, genocidal almost time in history of Canada, North America, and the world. So with that being said, you know, my dad, he went to residential school, and I feel like he experienced a lot more traumatic and, you know, demented shit than my mother did here on the East Coast when she was in day school. My mother once told me the story of, you know, her being young, and, you know, they had to go to town, you know, apart from like the racist people that were living in town, you know, pretending to shoot at the Indians as they were going to school. The Indians, I say that very, you know, lightly. I don't usually use that word, but, you know, it's in the federal government, so whatevs. Anyway, back to topic. My mother told me the story once of a young girl in her residential school who, she got in trouble for speaking her native tongue, which is Maliseet. And because of that, the nuns, they took her and they made her stick her tongue out, and they seared it. They seared it and burned it and singed it because she was speaking her own language. Imagine coming home and, you know, your kid coming home and hearing your teacher did this to your child. I don't know about you, but my ass would be up at that school having a word with that teacher in the bathroom. No, I'm just kidding. Violence is not the key. Violence is not the answer. Some other stories, like my dad growing up, like, you know, he had his problem with alcohol. A lot of Native Americans do. A lot of reserves we have, you know, from the outside perspective, we seem, you know, poverty levels up, you know, suicide rates up, violence, crime, you know, it's very heightened, I don't even know how the word, it's a heightened, you know, dark energy of just like the generational trauma that still leaks down through every generation. You know, kids to this day still, you know, not paying for it, but reliving some of the same traumas that their great-great-grandparents did, their parents did, because, you know, through each generation, if we don't heal, it basically gets passed down to your children, which is not what anybody wants, but subconsciously, a lot of people don't realize that. So, having two parents that went to residential school growing up, my dad drank a lot while I was growing up, and, I felt my mom had her own demons as well, and I'm not going to get into that because, it's her story, and I'm just going to, lightly touch on the topic of my father. Growing up, like, my dad was drinking. I remember growing up and seeing, horrific scars on his stomach area. I remember asking him what exactly they came from, and he would never tell us growing up, never told me anyway. And, when I asked my mother about it, she would say, wait till you're older, and I'm sure he'll tell you. And he did. And, a few trips I've taken with my father out to Winnipeg, where his family's from, out there, compared to New Brunswick, like, the population and the race is switched. Like, there are so many Aboriginals out there compared to other, ethnic race groups or whatever. But here, it's completely different. So I kind of get the perspective from an East Coast perspective of residential school versus the, like, out west, Cree, Ojibwe, those kind of Anishinaabe people, and the effects of them out there. There's a lot of gangs, there's a lot of violence, there's a lot of drug use, there's a lot of suicide, there's a lot of violence, domestic violence, amongst their own people as well as with other, off-reserve people. So basically, my dad, he had his problem with alcohol growing up, and because of that, I always wondered, like, why does my dad drink? One, why does he drink so much? And, why do I feel this deep, like, I remember growing up and always, like, thinking about my father and just feeling so sad for him and so sorry for him, because anybody who knows my father, he is, the most compassionate, the most generous, the most understanding, sweetest, kind-hearted person you would ever fucking meet. And yeah, he had his little issues in the past with, addiction and violence and, surviving these schools. And, I used to blame my parents a lot for the shit that happened to me as a kid because of them not being very present and visible during my earlier child years. But now, as I get older, I see why, my parents were not around very much, and it was because they were suffering themselves. And back then, like, they didn't have internet, they didn't have fucking cell phones to text, like, and it was harder for them back then to actually process the trauma, accept it, work through it, and, be able to, what's that word? Basically to pinpoint the reasons why they do or act the way they do. And my parents have never been married. They used to argue a lot growing up, and, my feeling internally growing up was always like, I always felt like I was from a broken home, which is not true. I was brought up in a beautiful home, or not a beautiful, I was brought up in a beautiful environment when it comes to, structure. I never had to worry about a lot growing up when it came to security. However, growing up, I don't know exactly why. Okay, well, I do know why, but I'm not going to get into it. I'm trying to tiptoe around certain topics so I'm not exposing people's, personal stories. Growing up, I knew my dad loved me. I felt it, regardless if he was drinking or not. Like, he always provided. He always had lunch money for us. He always made sure the bills were paid. Always made sure my mom had a new car for us, like, to drive us around. And, but the weird things are like, you know, we didn't hug very much growing up. We didn't say I love you very much growing up, and we still don't. You know, I see myself in those situations where, you know, someone wants to hug me or touch me, I'm very like, because, you know, not only myself for being, you know, I've been sexually abused growing up, and later throughout my life, you know, I realized so has my father, and, you know, reading his story and living my, like, what I've been through, it's uncomparable. You know, what happened to me is just a fucking minuscule molecule on the scale of the fucking tragedy, trauma, and devastation that my father's gone through. And, you know, my dad doesn't know this, but when he, you know, was last admitted to the hospital, I was cleaning his room and I found his transcript that was from court for his, you know, battle with the federal government, I guess, for his restitution for, you know, surviving residential school, all that stuff. And, you know, the shit I read in there absolutely broke me to fucking tears because, you know, my dad was maybe fucking 5 or 6 at the time. And, you know, this one specific priest, I'm not going to get very much into detail to it, you know, pinpointed my father and used my father as an example a lot for the other Aboriginal kids. You know, these people in the schools would molest these children, they would rape them, they would beat them, they would turn them against each other, you know, chop their fucking hair off. You know, like we all know, the residential schools were built to wipe out the Indian, which failed. And I'm having a hard time to stay on topic here. But, you know, I feel for my father. And, you know, suddenly as I got older, like seeing my dad, like seeing the good qualities in him versus, you know, the shit I thought made him a bad person, you know, it was just, you know, unhealed trauma from his past and growing up. And, you know, back then they didn't have the, you know, luxuries of, I don't know, mental health, like, you know, providing mental health for everybody, especially on, you know, poverty-ridden reserves, communities. And so, you know, I saw and I felt that generational trauma trickle through my parents down to myself and my brothers. You know, I was sexually abused growing up. I've processed that. I've dealt with it. I'm over it. You know, it is what it is. I've learned from it. You know, what was it? And I hope a lot of other Aboriginal people realize that through this whole experience, apart from the 215 bodies that were found, the generational trauma, like I said, that trickles down, it affects everybody. It affects, you know, it's like an energetic cord, basically. And until you heal that, it fucking trickles down. And, you know, I do feel had my father had the tools and the mental, emotional availability to heal himself from it, you know, maybe I wouldn't have gone through some of the things I did go through growing up. But it is what it is. And, you know, I hope people realize that if we don't heal these issues, these traumas, they only get passed down. You know, I hope one day in the future when I have my own child or children, adopt, biological, whatever, you know, I want to have myself healed so that they aren't suffering for shit from the past. And with that being said, you know, this is going to be another touchy topic for people, you know. I've heard a lot of opinions since yesterday or today when it was totally confirmed. I've seen some videos of people online, you know, disregarding the feelings, the disregarding everybody who was affected through these schools, their emotions, and everyone's entitled to their emotions. We all have them, and I hope this is a wake-up call to Canada, America, the whole world. There needs to be more investigation done. There needs to be more justice, brought to light. And, I'm not talking money compensation. If that's that, that's one thing. But I'm also talking about to end the systematic fucking racism to this day, Example given, the other day I was looking at makeup, and this lady came up to me and she was like, "What do you think you're doing?" And I was like, I'm looking at the makeup. And so I had one open and I was testing it on my hand to make sure it's the right color. And she was like, whoa. Like, you're not supposed to be opening those. And I was like, this girl was pinpointing me out of everyone in the store. I'm all alone in this aisle. And she's like, "Are you trying to steal?" And I'm like, "No. It says tester." And I turned the bottle around to show her. And so she walks away like, mm-hmm. And just small shit like that, like, and it's different for everybody. There's a lot of Aboriginal people these days that I know who aren't visibly, that you can tell right away that are Native American or Aboriginal. A lot of my friends, they've, dealt with racism just from other non-Aboriginals speaking fondly about my kind of people, not knowing that they're Aboriginal themselves just because they don't physically look like it, Looks is just one thing, but like, I know I'm visibly look Native, and personally I have felt, I have seen, I have, been treated differently in different situations, and, I hope that people who do go through these situations, because it still does happen, that there isn't a revenge type of, feelings or motives, because like, to finally settle the energy of all of this past shit from residential schools and the federal government and, Aboriginal people, savages, it's time that, as evil as the shit is that happened in the past, we can't keep, holding it against other people who were not even born in that era. Yes, maybe their ancestors were a part of it or whatever, but the fact is they weren't there, and most of us, I wasn't there either, and it's time for us as a new generation upcoming to release that grudge and that burden and that negative energetic cord from these schools that still affects everyone, because growing up, a lot of the times on the res, we talk about like, stick together, don't trust the white man and shit like that. And, we do stick together because, with, obvious reasons, and I don't agree with the, don't trust white man. I mean, people are people, and the sooner this damn planet realizes that we're all just one collective goddamn conscious person, like, the fighting will stop, the anger will stop, the hateful resentment, the racism, the fucking prejudice, the goddamn homophobic, like the judgmental. And I pray that people can forgive each other. I pray that people can move past this. I pray that justice is found for every lost soul ever that has gone through these damn schools. I pray that the souls who inflicted this damage on these poor young children in the past, never mind. But, I don't want to see any more violence between my communities and non-Native communities. I don't want to see, people who are younger or older than me who, like to blame the white man for everything. Yes, it had, we have bad history in the past, but in order as like humanity to move forward, we all have to start doing our part, as in, embracing empathy, sympathy, compassion for one another. We've all been through shit. We've all have our stories. We've all a lot of my friends, you know, I've seen struggle with addiction, with, you know, sexual abuse. Their parents have gone through residential schools, their great grandparents, like, you know, it was a tough time. And we live in a time where we're lucky that, you know, I wasn't taken from my family growing up, or, you know, I wasn't beaten at school for speaking my language. Like, and yes, there are, you know, things that are because the school happened, like, you know, I don't know my native tongue very much. We're still, you know, trying to relive or bring back the language, bring back the ceremonies, and, you know, it takes time, and things aren't going to heal overnight. As a collective of people who are involved in this, I pray that, you know, we can all come together finally as one cohesive humanity, civilization, as in, like, you know, community, you know. Every child matters. That's the whole movement. Black, white, Chinese, whatever, native, like, children, even in the streets, from, like, you know, my past, like, drug life or whatever, children are off limits. You know, children, even in the spiritual world, children are pure. Children are basically, like, to hurt a child is basically spitting in Creator's face, because he builds and creates and brings every child into this world for a specific reason. They're not meant to be treated like adults. They're not meant to be abused. They're not meant, you know, we're supposed to help develop our children. We're supposed to help raise them into people who don't hate other races, who don't, you know, despise or hold resentment to other people because of what happened in the past. And, you know, as sick and disgusting as it is that they found this mass grave, I'm not surprised, like I said in the beginning of this video, I think. And I know it's not going to be the end of the bodies that they find. Like, finally, you know, it's been proven that there are bodies and graveyards at these schools. And so I hope, you know, all the research and all the fucking investigations get done thoroughly, as well as the missing and murdered Aboriginal, Indigenous women. This video is everywhere, I know, and it's me rambling, but, you know, it's a lot. I'm holding myself together in this video, but throughout the day I've felt the sadness, the grief, you know, when you see children to this day, you know, the symbolism of the shoes, the 215 shoes that you see, you see little pink shoes, you see little moccasins, you see, you know, guys or boys, you know, boots, you know, look at your children, look at other people's children, and imagine them being basically murdered, and, you know, the repercussions of that on the family, the toll it takes. And I just hope that people, you know, can all empathize with one another, that losing a child is the worst feeling in the world. It's devastating, it's horrifying, it's evil, it's, you know, and it's heartbreaking. And, you know, it's heartbreaking watching my dad and my mom watch this on TV and, you know, talk back and forth and relive situations that they've been through. And, you know, I'm upset that there's 215 kids' bodies that were found, but through this, we are all going to find, you know, clarity. You know, think of the crocodile alligator spirit, animal totem. You know, he's got thick skin, but he's fucking wise. And, you know, alligators have been around since prehistoric times, dinosaur times. Even, you know, when I say the spirit of the crocodile or whatever, not whatever, but I say, like, you know, how they're underwater in the murky water. Like, picture that, the murky water, crocodile. They are able to see through the fucking, you know, bullshit. And, you know, there's going to be fighting through this between people who are non-Aboriginal and people who are. Oops. And basically, people need to harness the energy of the crocodile spirit to have clarity over this whole situation, that the whole movement, every child matters, is what's most important. and we need to stick together to protect our children. It doesn't matter what race, color, age, size, you know, children are our future, and as cheesy as that fucking sounds, it's true. And we need to put more time into loving our children and protecting them and nourishing them instead of fighting at this time over who's right, who's wrong, pointing fingers. That doesn't solve anything, you know. For those who find peace and, you know, clarity out of doing so, you know, everyone has free will, do you. But personally, I see this as an eye-opener for, like I said, the world. And I pray moving forward that, you know, finally we can stop pointing fingers at one another and, you know, forgive the past, move through those emotions, forgive one another, feel empathy for one another, and just be there for one another. Being kind to another human is the easiest fucking thing in the world. Being rude to another individual, being uncompromising, not putting yourself in, you know, walk a mile in my moccasins type of energy, you're never gonna heal as a person spiritually. You're never gonna be able to, you know, raise your vibrations or ascend into your highest conscious because, you know, you're stuck in the past. And the sooner we cut those energetic cords that residential school has fucking created throughout, you know, this continent, the sooner we heal as a nation, we heal as a country, we heal as a globe. And, you know, I pray in the future nothing like this ever happens again to any child, to any race, gender, whatever. I pray for healing, I pray for justice, I pray for truth. And as for reconciliation, I mean, it's time. We just need to stop. You know, it's time to reopen that book one last time and move through those emotions and finally close that book and move forward as a whole, because, you know, this is going to be a very touchy and sensitive time for everybody. And, you know, anybody who's been in residential school, I commend you. I know a lot of my ancestors on the other side have died and have lived through those. And, you know, they see us here in this physical world and they want us to succeed. They don't want to see us fucking, you know, dealing with the generational trauma from these evil events. Like, they want us to heal. They want to see us do our best and, you know, step into our higher self, our highest, you know. And, you know, I feel like I'm finally doing that in my path. Like, I'm trying to live a happy, sober, you know, red road type of life. And that involves, you know, showing compassion, love, honesty, having integrity, dropping ego, dropping fucking, you know, he said this, she said that, pointing fingers. Like, everybody just needs to spread some love. And at this time, I just want all of my people to know that we're all in this together. We're all in this on this planet as a whole together. And, you know, just pray every night, even if you don't, if you believe in God, creator, whoever, whatever, you know, just pray for healing, pray for global healing, because we need it right now. And, you know, it's crucial, like I said, that we recognize the faults in the past, we change current things that are no longer serving us. You know, people still fighting in the fucking federal law over, you know, whatever. But yeah, it's a very heavy emotion kind of day. And that's about it, I think. I think I've rambled on very much, but I felt it was very important for me to make a video on this very important topic. And I gotta go to work soon, so thank you all for listening. If you did listen, thank you. And, you know, everyone should say a prayer tonight for those 215 plus the other children that we've never found, we don't know about, who have perished because of these schools. And I feel it's only right. So I love you all, and thank you for watching.